Hello, bonjour. Here we are on day 67, oh dear, of our 80 days. I don't think I'm going to make it back to London in 80 days. I mean, 13 days to get there. We are disembarking in Regina in the middle of Canada, in the middle of nowhere, looking for some fabled flipping flying city. Right, sell it then if it does not want it. What the hell? What the heck, eh? Quebec City where? Valuable where? That's no good. New routes discovered. Toronto. Oh. Regina was the dullest city I had ever visited and barely justified the description. Not its fault, I suppose. Perhaps we simply arrived on a grey and lacklustre day in weak spirits. Still, my friends, I have nothing to report. I saw nothing, met no one. I did not miss it once we finally left. That woman said that was it not quicker to go? Departs tomorrow, arrives Wednesday, arrives Tuesday, I do not understand. I've forgotten. The lady on the train said something about... Ah, there it is, okay. How do I book it? Ah. Oh. Arrives today? Bah. We passed an anxious night with our 80-day deadline looming. Every sunset seemed to carry extra weight. As night fell, I went to stretch my legs, but found nothing of any particular interest. Depart. Depart, ja. Embark. We clambered aboard the Blackfoot train once more for another leg of our journey. What is your wish, master? Is there something the matter? The banks have been most generous to us, monsieur. It is not generosity, it is my prosperity we are gambling upon. Have you discovered anything in the Times concerning Winnipeg? I know that one can travel in the car fleet from Winnipeg to Ivujivik. What have you learned about Ottawa? Ottawa is the jewel of all Canada. Did you know they have electric lighting? We barely had time to wrangle ourselves on board at Regina, get used to being on a rattling steam train, and settling in for a meal before the long whistle announced our arrival into Winnipeg railway station. I never thought I would wish for a longer journey. Tomorrow at 12. Okay. These downfalls that people go there. It all began when my master and I turned a switch corner in Winnipeg and found ourselves directly in the path of a galloping horse with no rider to control myself. I pushed Monsieur Fogg out of the way, throwing myself on top of him just in time to avoid the clatter of iron-shod hooves. I pulled myself to my feet and we dusted ourselves off. "Admirable reflexes, Passepartout," he remarked, and I nodded. But we were not done yet. Moments later, the ground began to shake, and a cloud of dust and clatter of hooves resolved into a posse of red-coated mounted police. "Beg your pardon, gentlemen." The fellow in the lead tipped his hat to us, a twinkle in his clear blue eyes. "You haven't by chance seen a runaway horse go past?" "That is no horse, but a beast from hell," I shot back caustically. I pointed in a vague direction. "Surely you can follow the trail of bodies." The red-coated Mountie looked me up and down before leaning over in his saddle and offering me his hand. "Staff Sergeant James MacLeod at your service, and you are?" "Passepartout." His grip was firm and sure, his calloused palm rough in my own more refined hand. "Valet extraordinaire." He coughed, hiding a smile behind his hand. "I'm sure you are." I told him that we planned to make our way to London by any means at hand. "Well, here's some local knowledge for you." I suppose you should have a Canadian accent, I don't know. "Well, here's some local knowledge for you," he offered. "There's a little-known airship hangar at Ivujivik. Might be worth heading in that direction." We parted ways soon after. The staff sergeant had a horse to chase after, and, as always, my master and I had a journey to plan. Sacré bleu. to take our risk. We need to take our risk. Have we missed it? Ugh. Now what, huh? We will still do it. I struck up a few conversations here and there, investigating the various possibilities for how we might make progress. Another night, and the clock was forever ticking upwards. Before turning in for the night, I did some minor alterations to our clothing to ensure everything was in place for our upcoming departure. Let's get the heck out of here. Embark. Go. There are no rails across these lands, declared the woman who took our money and pushed a stack of furs into our arms. Nor airships. There is only one way to travel. With that, she slapped the bonnet of a steaming metal-wheeled car. Good luck. I was reassured by the many other passengers. Surely they would not all prove to be making a terrible mistake in their choice of transportation. Greetings, Madame Johnson. Ah, my good Passepartout. I need to know about Ivujivik. I could not possibly tell you anything about that. Is it possible to travel from Ijuvivik to Reykjavik? Ijuvik? Probably, but the only market in Reykjavik has gone bankrupt. Oh my, is that the time? We headed for Ivujivik with a mixed party of fair traders in a fleet of cars. The translator was half Inuit, half Dutch. Though, she admitted, I wouldn't know a word of Dutch if it bit me on the face. Dad drowned at sea before I was born. The only thing he left me were the blue eyes. Your looks are very striking. The translator gave a harum-thing snort. I'd much rather give back the blue eyes and be all Inuit. That's how I was raised, and it's who I am. I just don't look that way. The car engines had to be scraped and de-iced come morning. They were not lucky enough to have spent the night in a pile of beaver pelts, as we passengers had. We left without delay and managed to reach the settlement of Winnisk on the shores of Hudson Bay by nightfall. At Winnisk we boarded a heavy freight canoe fitted with a makeshift combustion engine and ploughed straight across Kangiksaluk Kangikswaluk. Kangikiswaluk, I don't know. Kangikswaluk Ilua. Or as the British call it, Hudson Bay. A much easier name, huh? The canoe jagged to the left suddenly, the navigator shouting belated warning, "Ice flow!" I seized Monsieur Fogg and dragged him away from the side of the canoe. I heard Monsieur Fogg take one sharp indrawn breath, and with slow crawling horror saw his top hat jerk from the top of his head and catch the wind. Within seconds it would be out of his grasp and plunged into the churning water of the bay. I launched myself at the article of millinery with a bellow, determined it would not meet our watery grave. I balanced on the very edge of the canoe and managed to snatch the hat from certain doom with the very tips of my fingers. I leapt down and offered the rescued article to my astonished master with a flourish. "Good catch, Passepartout," he murmured, setting the top hat upon his head at an unmistakably jaunty angle. Merely another day in the life of Passepartout, valet extraordinaire. Thankfully, the remainder of our journey to Ivuivik passed without particular incident. Relations with Fogg of strengthened. Good gracious, it's rather more exhausting than I had anticipated. It is a well-known fact that a traveller in search of advice would be well served to head to the nearest bar. And as me, that is exactly what I did as the evening rolled around. I drank shots of homebrew liquor with a Dutch sailor, who was mourning the loss of his third finger to frostbite. "Got 7 left, I suppose," he said with admirable aplomb. The bartender sidled up to the table to refill our drinks. She cut a dashing figure, an older woman with dark eyes and an easy, charming confidence. "New to town, are you?" "Passepartout at your service, madame." I leapt up and sketched a bow, and was rewarded by a flash of her smile. She introduced herself as Madame Opik Einalik, and happily enough proved to be not only the bartender but also the controller of the local airship hangar. "It's not busy enough to be worth manning the hangar all day," she explained, "but the next airship out to Reykjavik. Just tell them Opik sent you, and they'll find you a berth if you can afford it." I hurried back to my master to tell him the good news. He was greatly cheered, and even managed to eat his meal of dried salted seal without launching into a mournful lecture on the virtues of a well-boiled haunch of beef. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. We took cheap passage on a battered old airship headed for Reykjavik. So the captain warned us we would be making a stop to pick up 3 months' worth of readings from a meteorological outpost on the southern tip of Greenland. "Hope they're paying you well," I muttered, shivering at the very thought. The captain shrugged. Science is good business these days." We reached the outpost as the blizzard outside intensified. I could barely see the compact buildings through the sleet, and I felt the airship was a safer haven than the little clutch of huts clinging to the ice, for all that it was on land and we free-floating. The pilot's aim was true, either skill, practice or luck, and the airships caught the outpost tether on the first try, pulling us in to the waiting dock. The outpost itself was a barren and cheerless place, apparently manned by a single hardy soul who kept watch over the instruments and recorded meticulous notes. I would go mad living here. "Nobody lives here," It's not fit to be someone's home, the pilot muttered. It's just a stop on the way to somewhere, even if you're the poor bastard who's hired to stop here for half a year. Speaking of which, the pilot opened an inner door and gestured for me to enter. I stepped through and saw the outline of a man lit by the glow of a bank of instruments. Bonjour, monsieur, I called cheerfully, and the man gave a start. He turned and fixed me with his disconcertingly pale grey eyes. Visitors, he sneered, with the same disdain another man might say murderers or roaches. What do you want? To be treated with politeness, I retorted. Are you capable of such? The man exhaled heavily. He brushed a hand through his unruly blonde hair. Please forgive me, my manners have frozen in the blizzard. He offered me a small desultory smile. I am Viti Jokinen, keeper of this outpost. Join me for a cup of tea? I agreed eagerly, not least because of the prospect of something warm to ward off the chill. Ah, Passepartout, he murmured, handing me a cup of tea. If only we had met in better circumstances, I do feel we may have become friends. To meeting again, then. I lifted my teacup, and he clinked his own against mine in a toast. To friendship, he said, even at the ends of the earth. And so we spent a surprisingly pleasant few hours in conversation as the crew refueled the airship. It was with genuine sorrow that I bid him farewell and prepared to embark on the next leg of our frost-bitten journey. The blizzard was even more howling and wild as the airship departed from the outpost, and I shivered as I thought of the distance we had yet to travel. We drifted across the top of the world in relative silence. Below, wars were fought, hearts broken, curses uttered. Lives began and ended. But all we saw was the cresting waves and the endless drifting ice. I asked the captain for his thoughts, but he only shrugged. This is home, he replied. I've heard the rest of the world is a bit warmer. Perhaps one day I will go on holiday there. My master paced the narrow decks and said nothing. Clearly the wager hung heavy on his mind. How small London would seem when we finally arrived, now that we had seen the world from this lofty height. The weather cleared as we neared our destination. The water off Faxofloy Bay shone an impossibly bright blue underneath us as the low, colourful buildings of Reykjavik swept along the curve of the shoreline. The past days of tumult and blizzard seemed almost a dream. Reykjavik was a quiet town with few inhabitants, but still had the feeling of bustling commerce. The flag of the Kingdom of Denmark fluttered above the trade hall. We did not explore far, however, contenting ourselves to establish the departures and times of the airship to London, then settling down to a fine meal. Parfait. Tomorrow at 8 a.m. Parfait. I think I'm going to win this wager, or my master is going to win the wager. Oh. Our room was decent enough, but I was sure I would not sleep. Day 77. We took our room and settled in. I attended to Monsieur Fogg, ensuring he was comfortable. It was day 77. We had barely 100 hours remaining to return home. Depart. Embark. The Silver Seal was a cake imported from the Ottoman Empire. We loaded up and strapped ourselves in for the launch. Adventurer Fogg expected back shortly. The ocean tore along beneath us. I enjoyed talking to no one. There was nothing I needed to know, no one to charm, flatter, or beguile into giving us aid. There was only the wind and the time, and we could control neither. Passepartout, my master demanded. Make us go faster, if you would. I approached the captain. Faster, you say? You're crazy, we will explode. We want no risk, no danger. Then I promise you, we'll be in London in 2 more days. Monsieur Fogg looked out of the observation deck windows with perfect calm, as though we were not, with every passing moment, drawing closer and closer to London. My nerves were in shreds, and I was nearly chewing the rails with anticipation. I spent the remaining time ironing, which is a great solace to an uneasy soul. We tethered at the airship dock in Hyde Park and felt for the first time in 79 days the feel of English soil under our shoes. At long last we had returned to London and in time to win the wager. Achievement unlocked, completed trip. Achievement unlocked, 20 cities. Achievement unlocked, 80 days. Return. I seized my master by the collar and threw him into one of the steam carriages idling on the banks of the Serpentine in Hyde Park. To the Reform Club, I shouted. Throwing £50 at the driver as an inducement to speed. And you'll have another 50 when we arrive. Now drive. There's no need for such unseemly haste, Passepartout, my master noted, but I was a man possessed. The streets of London seemed comforting and familiar as they flashed past my well-travelled eyes. The carriages were mostly horse-drawn, and gas lamps rather than electricity lit our way as we raced down Pall Mall. The carriage barely shuddered to a steam-hissing stop before I dragged my master from his seat and up the steps to the imposing doors of the Reform Club. I released him only when we reached the great saloon, where my master's erstwhile friends stood from their chairs, gaping in an attitude of great shock. Monsieur Fogg only straightened a little and said in his calm voice, "Gentlemen, here I am." The room erupted into cheers, and I staggered to the nearest chair and collapsed heavily into it, my hands shaking. I realized, as though a spell had suddenly broken, that my master had won his wager of £20,000. With the 4,000 we began with, the debt built up from banks along the way, and our remaining funds, it was a profit of over 13,000. Hardly a meagre sum. My heart began to beat again, and I saw for the first time the crowds who had forced their way into the club to witness the momentous occasion. A journalist in a dark blue bonnet caught my eye. "And you must be the loyal valet, Passepartout," she said. "I do not believe we have been introduced," I remarked. "All of London has been feverishly following Phileas Fogg's progress in the papers." She swept her gaze over me and scribbled furiously in her notebook. "Your master will be tomorrow's headline, or I'll eat my hat." "I am quite overwhelmed," I admitted. "I'm not surprised," she agreed. "You should sit down." I pushed my way through to Monsieur Fogg, who had nearly been swallowed by congratulatory crowds. "You have won the bet, monsieur," I told him. And seized my master by the hand and shook it, as though we two were equals and not merely a master and a servant. Monsieur Fogg pressed my hand warmly, and did not remark even once upon the impropriety of my gesture. Indeed, though his cool gaze did not so much waver or soften, I believe he welcomed the chance to shake my hand. "Any gentleman would be fortunate to call you his valet, and you have been a worthy companion to me besides," Monsieur Fogg said, and I knew that, from him, there could be no higher praise. "Fogg, Mr. Fogg," the blue-bonneted journalist cried, interrupting our conversation. "What next for the great adventurer Phileas Fogg and his loyal valet Passepartout?" My master looked at me. I returned the glance. "I have always wondered what is at the centre of the earth. I looked around at the faces of the assembled crowds and cracked an eyebrow. Anyone care to make a wager? Monsieur Fogg. Anyone care to make a wager? Monsieur Fogg refrained from rolling his eyes. I believe, he said, with great deliberation, that tonight I will have supper and go to bed. Come, Passepartout. It grows late. Yes, Monsieur Fogg, I said, and followed. Whoa! The winner! Do I wait for the music or do I press the button? Let's press the button. Celebrated Englishman Phileas Fogg wins round the world wager. Journey completed in 79 days despite Reykjavik diversion, Indian rebels destroying the train line in Chittagong, and drug-addled valet in Hong Kong. Huh. Now what? Continue? Share? Continue. What happens next? Oh, we start again. Alright. Well, that's clearly the end of the game. And it's a fun game, and there's lots of ways to play it, obviously, because there's 169 cities or something it said. So I'll leave the next adventure up to you. Bye for now.